You're listening to The Manning Report with your host, James David Manning. The news behind the headlines.
So Bill Barr, I never trusted Bill Barr. I know it's in a confirmation here, and a lot of Democrats were jumping on the bandwagon, said he's a straight shooter, that he is, that he's a man of integrity, etc. I never trusted him. First of all, he looks like Fred Flintstone. But I just never got it in my spirit that he was going to be ethical. He had written a 17-page job interview, as did Matthew Whitaker, and Trump hired him. I think that anybody, my position was this: anybody that Trump is saying okay to can't be okay for anybody else, can't be okay for America. But a lot of people at the confirmation hearing were thinking, okay, he's going to be all right. I knew that was not the case. I can tell you this as well. A lot of people say they think that Mueller's a straight shooter. I don't. I don't like the way Mueller handed this thing off. And I know that Mueller has come up with some dirty information about Trump. And he's a man of integrity. Listen, maybe it's just, listen, I think that Mueller, I think he wrote a report that is damning. I think he could have demonstrated a case for collusion. I think what Mueller got frustrated was about when Paul Manafort jumped ship and said he wouldn't testify. I think Mueller hung his hat in his entire collusion case on Paul Manafort. Manafort said, I'm going to jail, and that's the end of that, and I ain't testifying. And then Manafort played Robert Mueller. Manafort was able to play Robert Mueller and 13 other attorneys and taking information back to Rudy Giuliani about how Manafort was building the case. So I think that closed Mueller's potential of collusion. I think that shut that down completely. There was just nowhere for him to go because Giuliani and Trump lawyers had the information that Manafort was testifying to or about to Robert Mueller in the time when they was in some sort of agreement. And when Robert Mueller realized that Manafort had played him, there was no way he could go with collusion, even though there was collusion. But the case had been effectively dismantled by Manafort, who actually hoodwinked and outsmarted Robert Mueller, number one. About obstruction of justice, which was the only thing left now. Did Trump obstruct justice? Yeah, he did. But my position is this, and if you listen to this carefully, spread the word. I think that Mueller got played in such a difficult way that he wrote all the dirt that he discovered about Trump, but because he got played in such a difficult way and is subject to Manafort being called to testify on behalf of Trump in the event any proceedings go forward, that Mueller really, I think where this matter is lost is not so much with Bill Barr, and not so much with Trump, the degenerate. I think Mueller blew it. I think Mueller let Manafort play him, and he blew it. And he had, didn't have the legal grounds to stand on. If he did, they would be immediately undercut because Paul Manafort could be called in the event Mueller tried to indict or recommend that Trump be indicted for collusion. He could call Mueller in, and Mueller could just shatter the whole thing. So, that's what happened. Obstruction of justice. Similar, kind of, but Mueller now, he's been played so much, he looked at the obstruction of justice and said, I'll put all the information out there and let Congress make the call. But Barr made the call instead, not to mention he's covering up a lot of other evidence and information. But yeah, I think that even notwithstanding the fact that Mueller got played, I think he ought to come forward and say that's what happened. And then bring whatever charges against Trump and against all, the whole thing. Listen, Trump's son, Don Jr., Ivanka, Jared, all that crowd was supposed to be indicted. But Manafort pulled the rug out from underneath Mueller. And he ought to admit it. Manafort pulled the rug out from under, and not so much for Trump. He just did it because that's how Manafort operates. And Mueller wasn't street savvy enough to check that's what was going on. Otherwise, Mueller's going to indict that. Mueller was going to indict a ham sandwich. He's definitely going to get Jared and Don Jr. But Manafort pulled the rug out. Manafort pulled the rug out. And there are several reasons why that took place as well. So what are we going to do now? Well, there's not an awful lot that can be done. I think that what needs to happen now is the full report needs to be handed over to Gerald Nadler and Adam Schiff and Elijah Cummings and Nancy Pelosi. What can they do? Well, they can potentially start an impeachment procedure against Trump because of obstruction of justice, not an indictment, because to fight the indictment issue is going to be a little tough to do of a sitting president. While a sitting president can be indicted, there's no doubt about that. But I think the procedure left for Congress would be not to indict, but to impeach. But the impeachment goes nowhere once it leaves the House and gets over to the Senate, and there's not going to be enough senatorial votes to impeach, so Trump gets away. And I think people need to, stop scratching their head and figure out this is what's going to happen. This is how it is. But there's enough other stuff against Trump that's going to bring him down. But Manafort pulled the rug out. Manafort pulled the chair. Manafort pulled the rug. And not that Trump told him to do it. Manafort did it because that's how Manafort operates. Maybe Vladimir Putin told him how to do it, but I don't think Putin understood enough about the constitutional system and judicial system to actually make that call. I think Manafort made that call on his own. Anyway, so now we got Fred Flintstone, who y'all refer to as Bill Barr, who says that he ain't going to ask for the courts to release the grand jury findings or anything else. They're going to give them what they're going to give them, then they're going to shut up and like it or stay in court for the rest of their days. This is here, roll clip number 2, Bill Barr.
As I said in my confirmation hearing, I am going to be reviewing both the genesis and the conduct of intelligence activities directed at the Trump campaign during 2016. A lot of this has already been investigated, and a substantial portion of it has been investigated and is being investigated by the Office of Inspector General at the department. But one of the things I want to do is pull together all the information from the various investigations that have gone on, including on the Hill and in the department, and see if there are any remaining questions to be addressed.
And can you share with us why you feel a need to do that?
Well, for the same reason we're worried about foreign influence in elections. We want to make sure that during an election, I think spying on a political campaign is a big deal. It's a big deal. Generation I grew up in, which was the Vietnam War period, people were all concerned about spying on anti-war people and so forth by the government. And there were a lot of rules put in place to make sure that there's an adequate basis before our law enforcement agencies get involved in political surveillance. I'm not suggesting that those rules were violated, but I think it's important to look at that. And I'm not talking about the FBI necessarily, but intelligence agencies more broadly.
So you're not suggesting, though, that spying occurred?
I don't, I guess you could, I think spying did occur. Yes, I think spying did occur.
Well, let me...
But the question is whether it was adequately predicated. And I'm not suggesting it wasn't adequately predicated, but I need to explore that. I think it's my obligation. Congress is usually very concerned about intelligence agencies and law enforcement agencies staying in their proper lane, and I want to make sure that happened. We have a lot of rules about that, and I want to say that I've said I'm reviewing this. I haven't set up a team yet, but I have in mind having some colleagues help me pull all this information together and let me know whether there's some areas that should be looked at. And I also want to make clear this is not launching an investigation of the FBI. Frankly, to the extent there were any issues at the FBI, I do not view it as a problem that's endemic to the FBI. I think there was probably a failure among a group of leaders there at the upper echelon, and so I don't like to hear attacks about the FBI, because I think the FBI is an outstanding organization, and I think, Chris Wray is a great partner for me. I'm very pleased that he's there as the director, and if it becomes necessary to look over some former officials' activities, I expect that I'll be relying heavily on Chris and work closely with him in looking at that information. But that's what I'm doing. I feel I have an obligation to make sure that government power is not abused. I mean, I think that's one of the principal roles of the Attorney General.
One of the things that we have to watching Barr's testimony here is that, in addition to the things that we said previously about Manafort pulling the rug, and then also our assessment of the defeat of the circular firing squad of the J5 people, that the destruction, that the norms are being destroyed, and really that nobody will trust the justice system ever again. That's just the end of it. I grew up in the Vietnam era as well, and I remember those situations with spies. I remember the Black Panthers and a number of other people that were spied on for social, civil reasons as well. But in Hoover's vicious way in which he dealt with his FBI authority. But I think what we're saying is that you cannot ever restore after this, well, not after this, but now as a result of this, I mean, are you going to trust another judge? I mean, let's say you're a conservative, right? A right-winger. And you go before a judge in a liberal part of the world, like say Pennsylvania, New York, or New Jersey. Are you going to trust that judge? I don't think so. I think with this whole debacle here with Trump is that the entire justice system is destroyed, and you're going to see a lot more police confrontations, or probably a lot more police shootings, to be sure, I should say, and a lot more disruption of justice and overwhelming of the court system, because I think most people at this present time, now looking at the inner workings of the FBI, the Justice Department, and knowing that Bill Barr is lying through his big, fat, gobbly teeth, that just to support Trump, and then Trump, of course, being a person who thinks he's above the law. I don't think most Americans are going to, I made a statement the other day that all the, and I'll get back to it, where Trump told the Border Patrol to break the law. I'm going to come to that in a few moments. That every person in prison ought to write a letter to their justice and judge, say, I want to get out of here. If the president can break the law, then and not get punished, and I'm a citizen of America, and I'm entitled to the same privilege to break the law and not be punished. I'll get back to that in just a moment. But I think that we're looking at a certain set of circumstances where the American judicial system has lost its integrity. And I just don't think that people are going to trust judges anymore. Not that a certain segment of our society ever trusted judges in the first place, but an FBI agent, or if you're being investigated for some reason, that one would not consider that the investigation about you is whether it's political or not. So at any rate, there's one other thing, Mr. Engineer. I think it's clip number where Charlie Crist asked William Barr to explain what he meant when he wrote in his letter to Congress that Special Counsel Robert Mueller's report does not exonerate Tribulation Trump. I don't know if you have that from yesterday, but if you do, pull it, because again, while we're in the Barr, looking at Barr's testimony, this is a part of that process as well, and we want to take a look at how he says that, how he responds to William Crist and Trump being exonerated.
On the question of obstruction of justice, you stated in your March 24th letter that the Mueller report does not exonerate the president. Can you elaborate on what is meant by does not exonerate the president?
I think that's the language from the report.
Right, I understand that.
That's a statement made by the special counsel.
Right.
I reported as one of his bottom line conclusions, so I'm not in a position to discuss that further until the report is all out. And then what is meant by exonerate is really a question that I can't answer, what he meant by that.
But as you sit here today, you can't opine, after having read the report yourself, why it reaches that conclusion that it does not exonerate the president.
That's right.
Okay, all right. So Mueller, I think, did us a disservice. You know, in using that language. And but let me step back. First of all, I think that Mueller got played by Manafort. All right, so let's deal with that. I mean, that's exclusive. You never heard it anyplace else except here. That Mueller got played, and he may be a straight shooter, but he ain't all that slick. Dealing with that Russian fella, Paul Manafort. All right. But having said that, the evidence, he said, did not exonerate Trump. We don't know what preceded that statement that Bill Barr extracted from the Mueller report. There could have been a whole lot of damning, condemning, all kinds of stuff that preceded that statement that Trump was not exonerated. That would have given the average person absolute stomp down proof that Trump was guilty as sin of obstruction of justice, but we don't know that because we don't have the full report. Are they going to get the full report? Well, we're going to see. It may take, I don't know, maybe another 6 months to a year to get the full report because Bob Barr said he ain't giving it up. You got to go to court, you got to get a subpoena, the justices, you got to get a judge to order it, then they're going to appeal that. If the judge orders that both the Intelligence Committee and also the Judiciary Committee get the report, they're going to appeal it. You know, they can't even get Trump's tax returns. I mean, you've never seen anything like this. This is just, but I think that, you know, I think when Napoleon said, don't interfere with a man when he's destroying himself, if he's shooting himself, or if he's shooting your enemy, don't interfere with him. Japheth has had his day. I know that sounds racist and biased and hate-filled, and please don't label me as that. I'm just telling you what's happening, that you're not going to be able to put America back together again. This is, if you thought long and hard about the depths of what's taken place over the last 3 years, that there's no way anybody's going to ever have any faith in the justice system anymore. You know, you can buy justice, but you certainly can't expect constitutional justice anymore. This is a bit of a news blog we do, looking at spiritual wickedness in high places for the most part, making some observations about it and giving people a biblical foundation to the way of interpreting, rather than have Sean Hannity or Laura Ingraham or Janine Pirro or Anderson Cooper or Rachel Maddow or Don Lemon, Rush Limbaugh interpret what's going on in the world. You come to me and I'll tell you based on what the Word of God says. They'll just give you their worldly, sinful view. But the Manning Report will tell you what God has said, whether to say yea or nay, whether to go or to stay. You'll be led by the word of Almighty God. Come to the Manning Report on a daily basis to interpret the spiritual wickedness in high places, because there's plenty of it that's going on. And so I'm the Lord's servant, James David Righteous Rebel Manning, and I'm here to serve you with news and information.